Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amir Rochalina.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston podcast is brought to you by Holland Harnham Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland Harnham Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. I'm joined today by Rina Bailey. Rina is a criminal barrister at 23 Essex Street Chambers in London and the founder of Dotty's Oils, a business that educates and promotes health and well-being through the use of essential oils and natural products. What's unique about Rina is how she transformed an interest in her own personal well-being after feeling burnt out from her work as a barrister into a business. And together with her mother, they aim to help their clients achieve a more balanced lifestyle too. And be sure to listen to the end, where Rina describes some of the challenges she faced in her career journey and how working hard and employing a can-do mindset really helped her achieve her goals. So whether you're interested in knowing more about what it takes to become a barrister, or would like to know more about how essential oils can help with your personal well-being, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Welcome, Rina Bailey, to the Inside Kingston podcast. Rina, I'm really excited about this conversation because, well, firstly, I don't know much about essential oils, and I think this will be a great chance, not only for me, but for our listeners to understand a little bit more about this, but also because I think you're a great example of someone who has a successful career in your own right, but you've also managed to create a successful side business that really started as a passion project. So to kick this conversation off, I'd like to go back in time, if that's okay. Where did you grow up?
Well, good morning to you. I grew up in South Wales in a large town called Merthyr Tydfil, the daughter of a social worker and a geography teacher. So I was brought up in a very loving, caring, safe, supporting environment. I was very fortunate and was educated through the medium of Welsh, which was relatively uncommon in South Wales at the time. But both my junior school and high school teaching was all through the medium of Welsh, so very much involved with Welsh culture and Welsh upbringing.
That's fantastic because, I've always thought that I spoke as a first language, a language that can seem a little bit complicated, being Portuguese. But then, of course, when I got exposed to Welsh, I thought, Portuguese is easy. This is this is it, really, in terms of a hard language. So no, that's fascinating. And do you still speak Welsh with any of your family members?
I do. Not as much as I probably should do. But it's a most beautiful language as far as I'm concerned. I know that people think it's very guttural and just and a lot of rubbish, but to me it's a very, very beautiful love language, and I miss it. In fact, I miss speaking Welsh in the way that I used to. It was such a huge part of my upbringing, and my father, although he speaks Welsh, he's English and was raised for some time in England. And when I was choosing my university to jump forward for just a moment, he encouraged me to get out of Wales, as a Welsh nationalist, and he said, go to uni elsewhere and then come back. And he's still waiting for me to return, of course. But very much part of my being was my Welsh upbringing.
That's fascinating. And of course, Wales is the home to so many great poets. So it's just no doubt that they derive a lot of their inspiration from the language and from the cadence of the language too. So I can definitely see what you're saying there.
Yes.
So you've mentioned university there, Rina. What did you study at university?
So I read law at Exeter University. I applied to get into Cambridge because I was told I should apply to Oxford or Cambridge. Didn't get in. Such as life, wasn't meant to be. I went to Exeter, so I was there for 3 years. I read law, as I said. It was a huge challenge, actually, for me, because all of my schooling had been through the medium of Welsh. And the only lessons we had in English were English and Latin, because our Latin books weren't Latin Welsh. So we had to learn that through the medium of English. So going into full-time education at university, just speaking and writing in English with the legal terminology, I found incredibly challenging, I must say. But absolutely loved it nevertheless. And then went on to Nottingham University, following Exeter, or Nottingham BVC, which is where I studied for the bar vocational course to become a barrister.
And you are still a practicing barrister, as far as I understand. Is that right?
Very much so.
Could you tell us a little bit about your career from studying for the bar vocational course to then the journey that led you towards actually becoming a barrister?
Sure. The next stage after qualifying, so after completing your bar vocational course, whilst you're a qualified barrister, you're not able, in fact, to practice. So similar to solicitors who used to have to complete articles and have to do something similar nowadays, we had to have some on-the-job training, if you like, which is called pupillage. And from recollection, the number of people that applied for a place in the UK on the BBC during my intake year, which was 2002 to 3, I think there were about 1,500 people applied for that. 800 got a position, but thereafter something like 400 got a pupillage. Wow. And so the numbers decrease fairly rapidly, and I tried for a number of years to get a pupillage unsuccessfully. And it was a very painful time for me because I felt that I was able to get interviews. So there was something about my CV or my application form that interested Chambers, and it wasn't Chambers in London, it was Chambers, in Wales. I thought the Welsh language would assist me there, in Birmingham, in Exeter, in Nottingham, all over the UK, really. But I just didn't seem to be able to get pupillage, and I found that a real struggle, I must say. And I felt that my having been to a comprehensive school, my being a woman, my having a very Welsh accent at the time, and not having any lawyers in the family very much went against me. But I was determined to stick with it, and I did, ultimately getting a pupillage in 2003-04 at what is now Red Lion Chambers in London, a criminal-only set.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Rina, there's quite a bit that I want to unpack in what you've just said there, because I'm interested in the mindset you employed that enabled you to keep striving to achieve this dream of becoming a barrister. And I guess I'm asking this question on behalf of our listeners who perhaps are students or have come out of university but are still not sure the sort of career path they want to take. Can you pinpoint what was it that made you think, you know what, I want to be a barrister, this is my dream? And then what's the mindset you employed to go through all of those quote unquote obstacles that you sort of saw in front of you at the time?
Well, I went through various job options as a child. Ice cream van owner was a forerunner, I have to say.
That's pretty good.
Pop star, naturally. Journalist was another one. I also wanted to run an outdoor education centre for quite a while. But I went, when I was doing my GCSEs, to a solicitor's firm in Merthyr. And I'm bound to say that I found some of the office work rather dull. Got stuck with pagination that I managed to mess up on a grand scale. But one afternoon I was sent over to court. Perhaps they'd had enough of me in the office. And the moment I went into court, it was Merthyr Crown Court, and sat down there and I saw the barristers in action. I just knew, I thought, I want to be that person. And so from that age, from around about 15, 16, I started looking into it really. And my school competed in the national mooting competition, and so I was able to get involved in that. I do recall very vividly my careers advisor sort of raising an eyebrow when I told him that I wanted to be a barrister. And he just said, well, what do your parents do? You know, and I said, well, my mum's a social worker, my dad's a teacher. And he said, well, why don't you think of those as careers? And that really annoyed me, actually. And I felt quite determined that if I wanted to be a barrister, you know, you can get somewhere if you just work really, really hard. And that's what I did. I applied myself to my studies, worked to my strengths, and just kept on going.
I'm a big believer in that, Rina, and I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think what you said there is the key to it, really, isn't it? You put your mind to work towards that goal. You employ the mindset that focuses you on that goal, and then really it's just the unglamorous, hard hours to get there. And you're definitely a testament to that formula. So absolutely well done on that. That's quite an amazing story. And I think that very gently brings us on to the point where you at least had the thought process of setting up your company with your mother. So could you tell us a little bit about why you founded Dotty's Oils?
Well, this is a conversation that even 2 years ago I never thought I'd be having. I very much considered myself to be a career barrister. I've specialised in crime for, well, over 15 years now. But really, I suffered from burnout at the end of 2016. I didn't see it coming at all. I'm bound to say I felt fine, and perhaps that's not the way other people saw how I was dealing with being very busy and very stressed. But I felt that I was stressed, but that I was just doing my job. And one morning I woke up and I was in the middle of a trial, and I just felt that I really couldn't face going to court on that day, and I couldn't face cross-examining another child witness who invariably would be very upset. And, pulled myself together, went to work, finished the case that week. I was acquitted, or the client was acquitted for what it was worth, so it didn't affect me in that way. But I realised that something had to change, and it had to change very quickly. And so I spoke to a friend of mine who was very keen on essential oils, and began using essential oils really to help me feel less anxious, to help me sleep better. And I just became completely and utterly addicted. And so went from, being addicted to being a user and then a supplier, like some of my clients with illegal drugs. So that was my essential oils journey, really. And I'm sorry to take so long to say it, but it wasn't an overnight thing. I never thought that I would have another business, if you like. I felt very exasperated that I didn't have enough time to do my current business. But I remember speaking to a barrister that I know very well at the Old Bailey one day, and I told him, look, I'm interested in essential oils, I'm interested in setting up my own business. I said, but, my main concern is I'm worried that it's a sales job. And I said, I hate being sold to. I hate shopping, much to the disappointment of my mother. I'm not a browser. I'm just not a fan, and I'm concerned about this. And he looked at me and he just said to me, what do you think you do every day? He said, you're selling someone's life story to a jury. You're selling somebody's mitigation to a judge. You are a salesperson. And I was flabbergasted. And that was it. I said, right, that's it. Dotty's Oils. Dotty's Oils was born. And my mum was always very much a part of that. She was always very interested in essential oils when I was younger. So it was a natural thing, really, that we should go into business together.
Could you tell us a little bit about what are essential oils for the benefit of our listeners?
Well, essential oils are natural compounds. So essential oils come from plants, they come from fruit, they come from trees, and they have been around for many, many thousands of years. And in fact, they've been tested on people for years and years and years. It's just that really there hasn't been any research on it until recent times. But for example, our citrus oils, so lemon, lime, wild orange, they are cold pressed from the rind of the fruit. So that's the oil that comes from that. So they're cold pressed or steam distilled from flowers, parts of the plant, bark, and so on.
And what's the thinking behind using these essential oils, Rina? Where does the sort of research come into it, and what are some of the effects that these essential oils can have on folks when they use them?
So for me, to begin with, I was completely disinterested in the magic behind the oils, if you like, in the science behind the oils. What I was interested in is trying to make my life easier. And I've always been a fan of nice aromas. I've always wanted the house to smell good and to wear good perfumes. And I know the power, as I'm sure many of the listeners will do, of how evocative aromas can be. So for me, I started using essential oils in the evening. And so I was drawn to oils like lavender and the chamomile oils that I know to be very calming oils. So that's how it began, certainly for me. And then very soon I discovered that I was sleeping better, although I wouldn't have said that I had a sleep problem as such beforehand. But I did feel that the quality of my sleep was impaired. So I'd often crash when I went to sleep, but then wake up in a cold sweat at around 4 a.m., thinking ahead and getting a bit stressed about what was to come that day. But when I saw the impact that using essential oils, diffusing them in the bedroom, so that's using them aromatically, applying oils like cedarwood and vetiver to the bottom of my feet at night, when I saw the impact that had for the better on my sleep and on my husband's sleep, I then thought, well, there's something in this. I need to try something else. What else can I use them for? And so it developed from there, really, assisting me with feelings of nervousness or anxiety and stress, just making things just that little bit easier. It's a form of self-care. And when I put oils on my feet or when I cup essential oils in my hands and breathe in, it doesn't solve all my problems. Of course it doesn't. Sometimes, frankly, it doesn't come anywhere near it. What it does do is it allows me to focus on myself, even if that's for a short space of time, and to acknowledge that I'm feeling a certain way. And sometimes acknowledging that is very important.
That's really interesting, Rina. And I also love the fact that you set up this company with your mother. I think we've got a few examples of daughter and mother, or a father and daughter, or a son and father business here in Kingston. And I'd really like the idea that can work, and one person can learn from the other, be it from the elder person's life experience or from the younger person's experience and enthusiasm as well in their own right. Could you tell us a little bit about your business today?
Well, I live in Long Ditton in Surbiton, and I host workshops at home. So I host make your own cleaning products workshop. That's recent one that we've been trialing, as well as more general essential oil workshops, teaching people the 3 ways that we use essential oils and how they can be used for a variety of things. And my mum does the same in South Wales. So we're an international company. There we go. She heads up the Wales branch, if you like, of Dotty's Oils. But we're also online. So one of the things I did last July, in fact, was I decided we needed a website. And I didn't want to outsource this. And I can honestly say that throughout all of my working life, it's the hardest thing, hand on heart, that I've ever done, is learn how to build my own website and write the content. And it's also one of the things I'm most proud of, in fact, because it was so difficult. I kept on forgetting how to do things that I'd learned how to do. But we also have a newsletter that we publish every month. And my mum's part of that is she has tried and tested with Sylvia column, which is always incredibly popular with our readers. She tries various recipes, not always successful, I'm bound to say. But it always makes me laugh because when I talk to people about the newsletter, they don't really care what I write about. But they're always very interested in what my mother has tried. And people then go on and try them themselves, our customers. So we're an online business, but we're also, if you like, a front-facing business, trying to educate people how to use essential oils safely and effectively.
It's interesting that you brought up your website, because in doing my research for this interview, I definitely spent quite a bit of time on your website, and I absolutely love it, Rina. And the thing you've mentioned there of not wanting to outsource it, making it personal to you, telling your story, and of course the way your mum's involved in the regular newsletters, I think that's absolutely brilliant, because it shows the business, it shows the human side of the business and who you guys are, as well as showcasing the products. And I just wanted to pull a thread on that, on that topic, if that's okay, because I know that you're also an active member of the Kingston Chamber of Commerce. But what are some of the methods that you have found that have worked for you in gaining new business?
I was encouraged to join Athena, which is a women's networking group, and I did so in November 2017. And I went along to the Surbiton branch, which has a lunch once a month at the French table. So I couldn't get a better venue, really, for a lovely lunch. But when I went along as a guest, I sort of expected it to be a bit stuffy, I'm afraid to say. But it was quite the opposite. I found that the women I met were inspiring, were interesting, and I felt very reassured, in fact, that most women in that room had more than one job, more than one profession. And that was great for me because, of course, I really felt that I was branching out, that I was doing something quite far out of my comfort zone. So networking is my absolute top tip, I think, for new businesses. And I don't mean networking where you go along and you stuff your business card into somebody's hand. And I've had plenty of people in various different networking groups do that with me. It's about trying to form friendships, trying to meet other local businesses and being curious really as to what they are doing, because if you just listen to what other people do, not only is it generally, for me, perhaps because I'm nosy, not only is it interesting, but you may be able to assist them in promoting their business, which of course in turn may assist you. So absolutely thumbs up to Athena and to the Chamber, that I'm very proud to be a new member of.
So, Rina, it seems to me that coming from quite a structured and legal background, you have found in essential oils something in the sort of health and well-being sector that really helps you be a better barrister and be a better person as a whole. Could you tell us a little bit about your underlying belief system on health and well-being and the use of natural products to achieve that in your life?
Yes, of course. As I've said earlier, I still practice as a barrister, and I have no intention of ceasing that. And I should also say that I now find that I am far happier, far better in court than ever before, because I am able to use essential oils, natural products to look after myself. In terms of my beliefs, I believe that you can make things easier for yourself if you want to. And that's in your professional life and in your personal life. And when I'm listening to customers or potential customers complain about ailments that they have, or things that they'd like to change in their life. So sleep is a very, very common one. Or perhaps they're suffering from recurring headaches or migraines. Sometimes I'm surprised to learn that they won't even countenance trying a natural or alternative remedy to assist them in alleviating symptoms or alleviating pain. I very firmly believe that we shouldn't be a burden on the NHS. individually, collectively, unless, of course, we absolutely have to. And there will be times when that is necessary. But as far as I'm concerned, essential oils and natural solutions assist in healing our bodies, and medicine is about treating our bodies. And I think we should all try and be as responsible as possible to not be a burden on the National Health Service. I mean, some people in the UK have a real issue with spending money on essential oils and natural products. And interestingly, in countries where healthcare is not free, people are far more ready to make that investment because they see that prevention is quite important. So I believe, as I say, that you can make things easier for yourself if you want to.
That's great. Rina, what are some of the key business lessons that you've learned throughout your life, both as a barrister and also as the founder and co-owner of Dotty's Oils?
I would say that you have to prepare. You've just got to put the hours in. It's not glamorous. It really isn't. But you need to have a good working understanding of what you are doing. You know, I'm a fan of doing things in threes. I know that lots of other people in business are the same. When I do a case, I know what my 3 best points are. I may have more than 3 points, but I know what my 3 best points are. I may not have 3 points, but I'll make 3 points. And, you know, with Dotty's Oils, I am constantly, daily learning. So education is very, very important. If you want to be able to talk about something, you need to put the work in. So it's not very exciting, I'm afraid, but you've got to graft and you have to enjoy it. And I fell out of love for a little while with being a barrister, and that was very difficult for me because it was a job I absolutely loved. And so stepping away from it for a while and returning to it has been very important.
The mental attitude of being a lifelong learner, I think, hasn't done anybody any harm ever. So no, I definitely take a leaf off that book too, Rina. When you look back at your career journey to date, what are you most proud of?
Well, building the website has to be at the top. That may sound ludicrous, but it just, you know, it's not perfect. I'm changing it all the time. So that very much is up there. But also, you know, I take a huge amount of pride in my work as a barrister. I look after people. I represent people who are at the very, very worst sometimes point in their lives. And I very firmly believe, regardless of the charge, regardless of the individual, that absolutely everyone is entitled to be represented. Everyone is entitled to have someone on their side, and I'll never change that. And so I'm very proud of the way I seek to look after those I represent and present cases efficiently in court. It's quite a skill to speak less. But it's often to be advised.
Absolutely. Rina, what next for you and your business? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you can tell us about?
Well, we've been trialling our make your own cleaning products over the summer, myself and my mother in Wales and in Surbiton, and they have been a huge success. We invite people along to make their own cleaning products, so natural products using essential oils. We provide the recipes and the materials, the essential oils, everything that's needed, and then our clients choose which cleaning products they want to make, and they make them and then they take them home. It's as simple as that. So we are now going to be doing that on a permanent basis moving forward. So that's one thing that is certainly something we're going to be sticking with. We're also very interested in essential oils and emotions. And so we're hoping in the new year to have some new workshops along those lines.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. Okay, so as we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions that our listeners are always interested in. So, Rina, what do you do to relax outside of the office?
Well, I'm not very good at relaxing. I'm getting better at it, I must say. But this year, I found the Sweat Society in Surbiton, and they started doing spinning classes, and I absolutely used to love spinning. So I'm back on my spinning bike. I'm back doing HIIT classes there, and I do find it very, very relaxing after the event, of course. I also love getting out and about. You know, I grew up just under the Brecon Beacons, and we used to walk a lot, and we'd go climbing and caving and canoeing. So I love getting out and about. In Kingston, you know, walking by the river, walking over to Hampton Court. Any walk that's got a pub at the end of it is always welcome. And I've recently started to knit, of all things. I never thought I'd say that. All these news at the moment, all these firsts. I mean, my mother's absolutely delighted because she's both an exceptional and a prolific knitter. So, yes, that's what I do to relax at the moment.
Really cool, really cool. Are there any books that you've recently read that you'd recommend to our listeners?
Well, The Secret Barrister has to be up there.
That's on my list, definitely on my list.
I tell you, I couldn't put it down, and I'm absolutely convinced that I know the author. I've met the author. I practice quite a lot in Winchester, and I think The Secret Barrister is a woman. I'm just putting that out there. Ooh. And I think I've done a case with her, and I put this on Twitter recently, and she said, or he said, that he or she could neither confirm nor deny. But it's a book about, you know, stories of the law and how it's broken. It's all about the criminal justice system from the moment an individual is accused of a criminal offence that they may not have committed, and enters a courtroom. So that's an absolutely fantastic book. I just couldn't put it down. But I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention my father's book, published a few years ago.
Yeah,
Hill's Ups and Downs by Tony Hill, my father. It's a book that he wrote some years ago now. It's his wife died, his second wife died of bowel cancer at the age of 41. And he wanted to do something to get away from it all. He knew that she was going to die. And he wanted to do something a bit like Forrest Gump, but he wasn't a runner. So he decided that he would try and cycle from Merthyr Tydfil up to the Shetland Islands.
Wow.
And the book is all about the diary that he wrote on the way. So sometimes he would be camping, sometimes he'd be in a pub. But as a geography teacher, he was very interested in the landscape. But it's, you know, somebody who's writing about reflecting on his life to date, grieving, the story of losing somebody through cancer. So of course I'm completely biased. But I loved it. And in fact, we have a joke in our family that if you can find an unsigned copy anywhere, it's probably more valuable than a signed copy because he signed so many. So yes, I'd recommend those two. And last but not least, I have to say a book called A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mystery, set in India in the mid-70s, 80s. I can never remember the plot, but I always recommend it. It was an absolutely exceptional read.
That's brilliant. And are there any movies or TV shows that you've recently watched that you would recommend to our listeners?
Well, I'm not a huge movie buff. My husband is. He likes loud, shouty movies, as I like to call them. But I love period dramas on the TV. So, you know, Downton, Call the Midwife. I love Grand Designs, MasterChef. And I suppose my absolute guilty pleasure is the TV program Inside the Factory, which I love. It's just, I love learning about how things are made, and they just can't get enough of those episodes out quickly for me.
Finally, where can people go to find out more about you and your business?
Well, the website, so it's dottys-oils.com. But we are also on Twitter and on Instagram, and we have both a Facebook page and a Facebook group, which is a members-only group, where we post lots of videos and so on. But it's very easy to join. You can just fill out the little 3 questions, and yes, we'll invite you in. So all over the place as well. I like to think we're everywhere.
And for the benefit of our listeners, I'll actually link those resources on the show notes. Rina, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.